Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Blue Abroad, the teams. I am Pom, aka Pommy and Oz. I used to have a name, I don't anymore. And live from a basement somewhere in the Geelong Greater region, Lek Dog. How you doing, Lek?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Just been out scouting the local talent down at Inverleigh for their. It looks like their seniors are training tonight, so I didn't make it back to the office in time.
I'm glad you specified football when you said scouting the local talent. As you moved over in a lay-by somewhere. Well, obviously here at the teams, we're expecting the teams as you all flitter through. Good day to Lachlan, Lucinda. Good day to Christian. Good day to Only Carlton, Paul and Chills. Back at the pub, you're getting a reputation, Lek Dog, as the George Best of Blue Abroad.
No, just away for work and didn't quite make it back to Geelong in time to do the live stream from an actual house. So we'll keep driving through the night. We'll get home eventually.
Well, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because obviously we're coming, it's a bit of a different vibe because like the last couple of weeks, we've gone into this team selection probably, I wouldn't say in a negative headspace, but in a more somber mood. Obviously this time Voss is going to name a team selection where after a 100-point win, he could name me, you and Cam Paulson in it and we'd probably be okay with it. So Chat and Lek Dog, are you expecting any changes? We know Owies is a test. Cotters is in the VFL. Do you reckon we'll see Voss fling a change?
Oh, history would say no. We might see Motlop and Owies come in. Probably, I don't think Vossi loves playing Cottrell. I think just give him another week in the VFL, give him another week to build that fitness base. I don't think there's going to be any major shocks. I mean, the only thing would be is if there's been a surprise injury that we don't know about. But I think so far so good in that space, and got a couple of very big milestones. We got 150 games for Doc, 50 games at Carlton for Sard this week. It's Carlton respects. I think they're going to go in with basically the same team as last week and hope we can sort of do it again.
It's going to be an interesting one. I mean, I think the same as you, and the chat is pretty much the same. I think Owies for Honey, Motlop probably comes in for maybe Ed Curnow, because he's been playing in the forward line last 2 weeks. So that might be the thinking. And then you've got to somehow get Kennedy in, haven't you? Which is going to be the tough one because he was sub last week. So that's going to be an interesting one, what they do that, because definitely when Kennedy played, he was sensational, wasn't he? For that quarter, he was definitely a bit different, wasn't he? So that could be an interesting one. But 3 changes would be very un-Voss-like, wouldn't it?
It would, but also he's probably never had healthy players actually coming back to the team. Well, we saw that last week with Doc and Sard coming back as a surprise. And I think if you give him healthy players, he'll make changes. But I think form changes are minimal at best. But you mentioned him there, and there was one name that I was excited to talk about, Pom, and that was Kemp from last week, who I thought was really solid. And I thought it was interesting given how many tools we actually went in within that defensive lineup. But he look good?
Well, I'd love your opinion on this, Lek, and I'd love Chat's opinion as always. One of the best sides in transition play with 3 interceptors. That's Melbourne. And I watched a thing from Goodwin last year where they were criticising him for continuing with 3 and saying that maybe Stephen May isn't a key position player because of his height. Because people forget he's only small for the key position player. But he talked about when they play without them, how the back line starts to stagnate in ball movement. And because all 3 of them are very get the ball and then kick it, it's hard to play slow football with them. So I think it's quite interesting that might be something Voss has accidentally found. With Kemp, McGovern, Sard, and Doc, all them are quick ball users. None of them take 2 weeks to do. And it was noticeable, particularly in the second half, wasn't it? How quick they moved it in the back half of the ground.
Yeah, I think for sure. And we saw when we had some players unavailable that Jacob Wiedering was doing a lot of that exiting D50. And he's not a quick decision maker. A lot of the time he can make the right decision, but he's not quick at it. all those guys you just listed are very quick in that space, and I thought it worked. Again, how much do you read into the game against West Coast? I don't know, but I liked the look of it, and I actually think it gives us some flexibility in game if there's some injuries with the current crop of players. Like, we can see Young has gone into the ruck a bit. We know that you could swing in a pinch if you needed to. McGovern forward, and Doc can push up the ground in that midfield. So I actually really like the mix that they had, and I think you're right. I think they've landed on something. We'll see how it progresses, and then of course the interesting thing is if Caleb Marchbank's ever healthy again, does he come in and play for one of those spots as well? So I liked the look of it, and I liked the balance with we probably had one less tall in the forward line the last couple of weeks as well, which I think on balance, it works pretty well.
Mate, I agree with you, and you are right, Rio and Lachlan. I have been playing. I'm a little bit worse for wear because I went live 2 a.m. To stream AFL 23 because I'm an idiot. And I've been playing it hard out. If anyone wants a good laugh, though, can you please jump onto Swoop Luke's channel? He did his first game against Carlton. And unlike Pom, who beat Brisbane in his first game by 30 points, he lost by a point to Carlton. So if you're watching, Swoop, can't all be good at the game, kid. We can't all be good at the game. But the great man, Terry, is in chat. And people asking about Fisher. Now, I want to put this out for you because I thought Cameron made a great point here. Now, Ollie Hollands is my boy, as ratified there. He's certified Pomming Osgood. Now, I think Cameron's right. I think we're going to have to give him a rest at some point, and you can see that on his output. It's a big game for him to play. Now, I've noticed if you watch my preview, we talked quite in depth. Terry will like it because I gave Fish some love. So my two mates, Bugs Bell and Terry, will like that. The big thing is we started to notice him get pushed into the wing a little bit in the rotation. They did do that last week to accommodate Doc going onto the ball, which gives us that extra rotation down the back we can. I don't mind, if, you know what, and I'm not saying this is an idea, but I'd love you guys' idea. For me, I think Fish is more of a mid than a high half forward. I think his better work is when he's with the ball. Would you see him in that rotation a bit more where they maybe play him half wing, half high forward? Because last week it was interesting. Sam Walsh, 33% high half forward, replaced Fisher, and Fisher went into the wing spots. Will that be something that maybe Carlton might look at doing if we've got Owies fit and we've got Motlop fit and they want to bring in a guy, but then they also want to do that? Because that's something that I heard Ash Hansen talk about last week in the Dow comments, that they do want to really nurse the first-year players, which I thought was interesting when they talked about that, about with Dow. They actually talked about how he maybe was overplayed when he first came into the system, which is why they're getting punished now. I think that could be a really interesting talk. And what do you guys think?
Yeah, the Fisher one's interesting. I don't mind him when he's moving forward with the ball from the midfield, potentially on the wing. I think in that St Kilda game, it felt like they used him almost in that Will Setterfield sort of wingy kind of defensive sort of swooping role, which I don't think is his strength. There's probably we've got to try someone in that sort of connector role from the wing, because I think you're right, Ollie Hollands, he will get a rest at some point. I'm not confident it'll be this week, but he will get a rest. We saw Cowan's been given a rest. And it looks like they've shifting away slightly from Lockie O'Brien as that replacement wing player. So I think they're going to experiment, and I think we could see a bit of it. And the other thing is, if you want Fisher in the team, if Voss and his staff want Fisher in the team, they do need to find a way for him to be impactful, because I don't think it's going to be forward of the ball when everyone's fit and healthy. So keep persisting. His best games are when he's running forward with the ball from the midfield. So I'm not against it. I'm not against it.
Charlotte, shout out to you, the real MVP. It's more important being here. But let's talk about what we think this game. Obviously, this is a big game. Brisbane, 4-game win streak. They had a horrific start to the year. They obviously beat the crap out of Collingwood, which has kind of kickstarted their season. Obviously, they're going into this game without Daniel Rich, so the transitional threat is negated a little bit. And no Dane Zorko, who, although Dane Zorko's output isn't great this year, he's definitely a metronome for what they're about. So, how are we feeling about there? Because it's really interesting when you look at the stat lines, particularly transition defense and transition attack. You're looking at two sides that are identical this year. So, both of us have struggled to defend transition, but both of us have also scored the same amount of points from there. This could be a really interesting game, couldn't it, between two sides?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Brisbane play us really well, particularly over the last few years. They play really well at Marvel as well. What I do think, actually think it could be as simple as which player has his kicking boots on in Danaher or Harry Mackay, because I think you're right that we measure up very similarly, and both of those guys are sort of barometers. When Joe Danaher misses his first goal of the game, you could pretty much guarantee that Brisbane are going to lose, and when he kicks his first, well, generally he's going to kick 5. So you can overcomplicate this one a lot by looking at it, but I think we're pretty similar teams, and I think it's going to come down to which big key forward performs early in the match. I think a lot of it this game is going to be sort of played above the shoulders, as they say, Bommy.
Old cliches. Is it true there's a potential kicking glitch in AFL? It depends if you watch my video. Charlie Curnow just kicked every goal on the run, but that's because they've statistically made it proper. I agree with you. I think this game's going to be really interesting in the terms of Charlie Cameron's going to be a big answer here, and I'd love to know your thoughts, Black Dog and Chats, that we've had two different ways of how Voss has handled these small forwards. And we've had quite good success this year. No one's talked about it, but small forwards usually are the ones that kill us. And this year, we've actually done pretty well at negating these small forwards. Now, one hand, he's deployed Adam Sard in a very aggressive manoeuvre of getting them to attack, which makes that dangerous player have to defend. He's done that twice this year to great success. But then he's also deployed one of our favourites on this show, because we love the battlers, we love Noons, and we now love Newman, a guy that doesn't get really the attention. Newman's been sensational this year, staggering 88%. He's won one-on-one, which is incredible considering he's played some very dangerous players. Do you reckon this week it's just straight away Newman to Cameron? Because Cameron defensively is very good. He's one of the better small forwards defensively, which people forget. Or do Carlton go bold and throw him? Or do you think there might be a mix of both?
I think there's probably going to be a mix. I would actually like to see Sardi take Cameron up the ground a little bit and see how that plays out, and potentially run Newman on Cam Rayner to start. And then if that doesn't work, pretty much reverse it. But I think initially I want to see them make Charlie work. He's been really, really good this year. He doesn't need a lot of space to kick goals. So I think you get two benefits if you play a Sard off him. One, you're dragging Charlie, if he's being accountable, away from their goals, but also you're getting Sardi involved in that transition game and that connector to half forward, and that's where he's at his best. So for me, it's Sardi on Charlie to start, Newman on Rayner at the beginning, and then if it doesn't work, we can make adjustments mid-game.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I do want to talk about, because you and me have a soft spot for a certain footballer who, at the moment, he's in the press for all the wrong reasons. Hopefully he comes up on... Oh, wait, that's Zach Fisher. Hopefully he comes up on screen right now. But we have got a soft spot for this gentleman here. We can talk about Zach Fisher, that, because Terry will kill me if I don't.
I did think it was funny you said soft spot and then Zach Fisher showed up. And I was like, I mean, I like all of our players, but I wouldn't say he's our soft spot.
But this guy's been in the press a lot here, Mark Pitternet. So at the moment, one of the top players in hit out to advantages, but also score launches, which is incredible. These are his stats for what we consider the Ruckman stats, something that we're looking at here. And you can see here that the hit out to advantage and the score launches are quite high, particularly for the modern day ruckman. And he's kind of in the press because of TDK. Joshua asked the question about what do we think is going to happen with TDK. He's really, I think this year, because of his fitness, he's really cemented the number one conversation. I know that there was quite a few at the start of the year, wasn't there, who were, TDK can replace him. I think you've seen it. And he's going up against a player this week in Oscar McInerney, who probably is similar to Mark Pitt, and that he's not known for his work around the ground. He's big and he's strong and he gets the hit outs and he gets first use. This could be a great matchup, and I think there's a very big similarity between Brisbane's midfield engine room and Carlton's with when their ruckmen start doing their ruckman things and are giving it. This could be a great matchup. What are we thinking about
that? So I agree that they're very similar, Pom. Big O and Mark Pitnet. Pitnet's obviously our number one ruckman. Guess what? Getting the ball to your midfielders is a really positive thing. Again, we spoke about it earlier. It's going to be a very... Players are going to have moments in the game where they take control. I actually think the backup ruck is going to be the interesting piece of it, Pom. Like, is it going to be Lewis Young that steps up? Is it going to be in the forward-line Joe Danaher that steps up? Because I think they're going to pretty much break even in the midfield. But yeah, Pitto definitely is... he's very underrated for us for what he does.
Did your microphone just change? Because now it sounds like you're coming to me live from Warrnambool on the radio. I've got Lapdog here. He's a Carlton fan from Warrnambool. How are you doing? Can you hear me? He's just switched off. He's just like, oh, there you are. Now you're crystal clear.
Yep.
Welcome back to Blue Abroad 101 FM. But no, I agree with you. I think it's really important. This is from Serkan. I hope I've said your name right. I'm sorry if I haven't. I still struggle to say continuity. Hey, you see how I've learned this week? You all took the piss out of me. I learned. Always is a test for this game. So Voss did. It was quite interesting because legend that is Gary Brown touched on it. Voss did get very excited in his press conference today because this is the shortest injury list we have had for a long fucking time. Like, it doesn't actually look like an injury list. It's like kind of an injury trio now. The cavalry is returning. This is going to be a really interesting time, I think, because Cunners adds a dimension to this club, but we've always coming in. Then you've got Pitt, you've got Cottrell, who's probably going to get another VFL game, let's be honest, because I reckon that's what they'll do. I don't think they'll rush him straight back. Boyd is probably going to get another shot at VFL. We're in a real interesting time in this next 6-week block, which is probably the hardest we face all week. If Carlton can go 4-2, so away finals. And they're going to be able to really throw in some little dash and some exciting players, really. You look at that injury list. Cunners, Cottrell, Binsey. In the VFL, he's not injured, but he's not played yet. Boydie. These are all players that you'd probably have a good argument are in and around the best 22 when everyone's fit. Carlton have got maybe some curveballs to come through.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. We've had long injury lists for years now. I like the throwing in of the guys. I like the throwing in of a Cottrell. He's a bit of a different look for us. I'm excited for when Binns debuts. The shorter your injury list is, the harder it is for your oppositions to prepare for you. And for so long, we've had like 26 dudes that we can choose from to fill 23 positions. So, yeah, I'm excited. I think the next few weeks, as you said, are going to be really vital. And the other thing which we never get to do, Pom, we might actually get to like rest some players and manage some players. And like maybe Paddy Cripps doesn't have to play every game. Like he will, but maybe he doesn't have to, which is not something we've had the luxury of doing. And I'm touching all the wood right now. I'm touching all parts of my car because I'd love to see some just continuity, Pom, within our lineup, but also some options to change it up.
Yeah, we've said it. We've said that word right twice. Look at this. We're making improvements. No, I agree with you, and I think Bugsmell's spot on. Starting to find some depth. Spot on, mate. And we're actually going to see some depth. And I agree with you, Let Dog. I think 2 months down the track, let's say Carlton. Let's just talk hypothetically. Don't want to get too far ahead, but say round 14, round 15. instead of churning the same players out and risking injury, being able to throw some rotations in, being a bit healthy, that could be super exciting long term because let's be honest, the top teams in the land manage to rotate players and use a list. And we're actually going to be able to do that, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, me too. It's something new for us, to be honest with you. It's something new for us. Like the last time we had a healthy list, I think we were running Andreas Everett out of full forward. So, I'm excited to see a healthy list of football, AFL level footballers.
Hey, Andreas Everett, that kid can play footy.
Mate, won our goal kicking one year with about 18, I think.
To be fair, I could have won the goal kicking in like 2015 as well.
Yeah.
Michael Gatzola. That's a great name. It flows off the tongue. I've probably massacred the surname, but he loves your fake car background.
Yeah, this is actually my office I'm in. If the lights turn off again, then the battery's probably dead on the car, but we'll vibe it. We'll make it work.
Well, it's 6:20. We're just awaiting teams. There's news filtering through. Oh, wait, the teams are being announced. So your teams. This is quite exciting. Out is Zach Fisher. I'm going to... omitted. Pom's going to try and not smirk. Matt Kennedy subbed in Jesse Motlop. And the teams: Sam Doherty, Lewis Young, Nick Newman, Mitch McGovern, Jacob Waitering, Adam Sard, Blake Akers, Patrick Cripps, Ed Kerno, Sam Walsh, Harry Mackay, JSOS, Corey Durden, Charlie Kerno, Jesse Motlop. Followers: Pitternet, Chera, and Hewitt. With your interchange bench being Brodie Kemp, Alex Shinkotter, Ollie Hollins, and Joshua Honey, with a sub being either Zach Fisher Kennedy, Cowan, or Fogarty.
Wowee, Pom. So what were those ins again? Was it just Motlop or was it Owies and Motlop?
It was just Motlop, and Kennedy and Fish omitted it, and there you are. You see, Terry gets his football. Do you know what I mean? Like, he knows it's not personal, as they say in the movies. It's business. But you know what? Interesting that Voss has made the statement after getting the dub.
That is interesting, Pom. That is interesting. A very big dub. There was some things in that game that I was a little worried about. I was still a little, even though we won by 100 points, I was still a little worried about how we defended transition. And they ran up through the midfield a bit. So there definitely was things that Vossi wouldn't have been happy with. I'm surprised, to be honest, that it's Fisher that comes out. But I agree with Tez, what Tez said. He needs it.
Well, we are at the stage, I think, if we're honest, if we're at the stage that you've got to be in a position where the top teams have a little bit of selection pressure. And you know what? I actually don't mind Fisher coming on as a sub.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's definitely got the pace.
Yeah. And the one that does surprise me is Josh Honey staying in, because that makes a real selection statement, which I would suggest means that Josh Honey's going to play in the Fisher position higher up the ground like he does for VFL, which is interesting because as Luke Power touched on, he was debutising for Owies in the VFL. And then switched back to his role at high half forward. So that's going to be an interesting one. And Voss showing maybe a bit of faith, but maybe, as Terry says, sending a message, which we asked for last week. And sometimes the best time to send a message is after a win when vibes are high, because it kind of sends a different message to the players that he's not angry. He's looking for perfection. But the Kennedy one's a little bit weird. What do people think of the Kennedy one?
I mean, it could be one or two things, right? We've seen a few times Vossi's run with the same sub in a row. Maybe they just can't find a spot for him now that Walsh is fit. It's interesting because I still think he can be kind of almost a utility for us. And on the keeping Honey, and it's either Vossi really likes something that Honey does because he does tend to play him, or they're really set on having this 3 small forward / high half forward mix, because Honey stays in, Fisher comes out, but then Motlop comes in, which is who we thought Honey was replacing when he first went out. So I think it's a structure thing, and I just think he's not happy with what's being delivered from Fisher.
I did cover it in, and thank you to Ugar for his 14.99 donation. You are a legend, my friend. I do think it's interesting that if you watch the preview that I did, so go and watch that after this show. I did talk about Kennedy and Fisher at the half forward and compared them to similar players that play in that role. Fisher being more of the link man, Jesus being the target entrance inside the final third. And there was a few areas there that you can see they're okay, but what I was trying to get into that video is that's probably a position there that there's a lot of players that when they come back fit are going to be like, you know what? I want that role. Cunner's been one. Do you know what I mean? Jack Martin being the other when they finally get some fitness. That could be a really interesting conversation, if I'm pretty sure Martin's a week away from the last injury report to play VFL. That could be a really exciting time, couldn't it? Do you know what I mean? That could be a really exciting time in VFL this time next week. If Cunners is in his second VFL game, Martin is, they're banging the door down. Suddenly we've got a real bit of selection pressure all around the ground because the back line seems a nightmare to get in. The midfield seems a hard place to get in. The forward line, that really, from a long-term perspective, is exciting.
Yeah, and we've spoken about it off air that there was probably a position in need for the off season, the coming off season in terms of recruiting. Maybe they clearly know that as well, but maybe they're just going, right, guys, this is a gaping hole in the side. Who actually wants it? Who's actually going to improve enough, and who's going to take it? And you're right, it's exciting. You got a lot of talent, a lot of talented guys who don't have a fitness base that are on our list that can fill that spot, but who's actually going to be available to do it? So yeah. I'm not sure it'll be Josh Honey, but right now it is.
Well, a lot of people talking about Ed Kerner. I am surprised Mr. Edward Kerner stays. I mean, it's obvious that Voss is looking looking a bit deeper in maybe, dare I say it, what he knows as opposed to what he expects. So in the terms of Ed Kerner, when he's played half forward this year, hasn't been great from a goal perspective, hasn't been great from a ball use, but it has been great from a pressure act and a rushing point of view. So maybe Voss is like, at least I know Ed Kerner's going to be on the half forward. He's going to run all day. He's going to get within the kick. So there is a stat that the AFL like to keep. Pressure acts, they're very important in exits out of D50. Defence, it's not so much the tackling, it's getting closed down and putting a bit of pressure on the kick. It forces him to rush. Maybe Voss is starting to look at that, which do I agree with? Probably not. But it does make... I'm trying to decloud a cloud.
Yes. Yeah. Now, I think it's a high floor thing. We see this across professional sports all the time. The vets always stay in teams because they do the minimum requirements. And I think it's probably as simple as that, Pom. Vossi knows that for his 22nd player, if that's Ed, then he knows exactly what he's going to get out of him. Whereas if his 22nd player is a Jackson Binns, he might not know what he's going to get out of him. So I'm also surprised. We've said that, I think, every round, every team's video this year. I'm surprised that Ed's still in the team, but God bless him. He's still in the team. So we've got to support him.
Well, I mean, God loves a trier. God loves a trier, doesn't he? I mean, two things then to finish with. We're right at the end of the show, but just remember, Carlton Respects this weekend, so go and get your merch. Fabulous cause. Remember, in 2019, 2.1 million children, boys and girls, witnessed domestic violence in their home, which is a stat, whether you agree in Carlton Respects or not, we shouldn't be part of as a society. You wouldn't want your kids seeing it. I don't want to see mine. But more importantly, on happier news, I want to know 50th game for Michael Voss and for Adam Sard, 150 just gone for Mr. Sam Doherty. What is the storyline this week and your score predictions? And I want who is going to be the surprise packet in this game for the Blues? Or the
Okay,
Lions, if
so
you're that way inclined.
I will not be talking about the Lions. Score prediction: Blues by 18 at home. I think the story of the game, as I touched on earlier, is going to be which of the big forwards starts well early. I think Harry Mackay is going to get out of his funk, and hopefully Joe Danaher doesn't have his kicking boots on. And the surprise packet, Pom, the surprise packet's tough because I do want to say, like, this isn't a surprise, but I want to say Adam Saad's going to be best on. And I think he's going to slot a goal. I think he's finally actually going to convert one of those shots from outside 50 in his 50th. And I think he's going to lose his mind when he does it. So that's my surprise slash prediction.
I'm going to go Blues by 12.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do Kerno brothers become first brothers to combine for 15.
How many does Charlie kick from those? 14?
15. No, I'm only joking. I'll say 12. I'll say 12. I'll say Charlie's going to back it up, go big this week. I reckon it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a tough game, though. It's going to be a tough game. We know it's going to be a tough game. And my surprise packet this week is, well, last week, Voss showed faith in a few players. Hewitt was diarrhea up until that point. He backed him up. Young came under a bit of flack from the fans. So did Wheaterin. And they all had, even though they were playing traffic cones in blue, they did do their job when they needed to. So I've got a feeling that Josh Honey's going to have a good game because Voss has given him 3 weeks, pretty much, where he's probably been kissed on the proverbial with it. I reckon he's going to have a really, really strong game this week.
I like it, Pom. I think it could happen. And he might have a bit more of a impactful role this week. So it's his best opportunity to do it so far.
There is, and there's going to be... the coronation is tomorrow, so, I'm glad that the club has thought ahead and played this game on Friday, so I can be with my people witnessing the coronation tomorrow. I won't really. I'll be playing AFL 23, so might be on in the background, though. I'll get Zoe to say, ooh, look at that dress. But that is all from us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your continued engagement and your fantastic comments. We love you very much. Me and Let Dog froth you guys and girls in chat. Make sure you come and see me tomorrow if you're not at the game. I will be live and probably making some more quotes and making a tit of myself when Charlie takes a screamer on the back of Andrews. Thank you very much, everyone. Much love. Go Blues.